I call the meeting of the JEA Board of Directors to order. Let's begin with a time of reflection, please. Thank you. Okay, are there any introductions this morning?
I don't think so. I think we are good to go.
Okay. If there are none, can we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Safety moment and briefing from Steve Selders, please. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Baker and members of the board. I'm Stephen Selders, JEA's Director of IT Strategy and Solution Development. It's my pleasure to speak to our safety moment for the May board meeting. But before we do that, let's recall that in the event of an emergency, we're going to dial 911 and alert the authorities. If an emergency requires evacuation, we will take the stairwell, not the elevator, down 19 floors, out the emergency exit, and we will assemble in the Baptist parking lot at the corner of Ashley and Main Street. Make sure to pair up with your safety partner, which is the person to your right, and we'll make sure that everyone gets out of the room safely. Be aware as we exit the room of any potential hazards, including trip hazards, and the need to wear our masks when we cannot socially distance. Lastly, please remember to keep your cell phones on silent. In the virtual meeting, please mute when not actively speaking at today's board meeting. With summer's increased heat and humidity right around the corner, JEA's monthly safety focus for the month of May is heat safety and heat illness prevention. This is an especially important concern for us as several of our colleagues work outside all year round in conditions that make heat illness and heat stroke a threat to be taken seriously. Of course, in these conditions, we need to remember to stay hydrated, drink more water than you think you need as dehydration sets in before you notice it. Try to avoid working in the sun, and if that's not possible, take frequent breaks in the shade. And perhaps most importantly, just keep an eye on each other, keep an eye on your workmates, and that includes not just colleagues during work hours, but your family and pets during our long, hot, and humid Florida summers. Corresponding with next month's official start of storm season, next month's safety moment will focus on hurricane safety preparedness. Thank you, Chair Baker.
Thank you, Steve. Since it's going to be 95 today, I think you picked a pretty good day to talk about that. Next on our agenda is Council Liaison's comments. Councilmember DeFore.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Nice to see everybody. I really just brief update. We have a big vote tomorrow on the gas tax, which has a direct impact, as you know, on JEA because $100 million of that will be directed towards septic tank removal. So big vote tomorrow. And other than that, we got some leadership vote tonight. So a big week for the council. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions of Councilman DeFore? Thank you, Randy. Appreciate you being here as always.
Thank you.
Okay, we have several requests from the public for speaking. Let's start with Valerie Gutierrez, please. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning, board members. Appreciate the opportunity to speak before you today. I just wanted to address a couple of different topics that have been mentioned throughout here. First, I found out on Friday there's been 11 JEA employees that have taken advantage of the limited retirement option out of the 298 actually eligible. So, and I appreciate it because I know some of those were some of my members that had health concerns. So thank you. Next, I understand the need for any company to have a diverse workforce, and I'm proud to be able to check 3 of those boxes. 1, being a woman in a non-traditional job, representing my Hispanic heritage, and also a Navy veteran, so I appreciate that. And I'm also excited to be working with JEA to find ways to help to encourage other women to apply for non-traditional jobs. So I'm looking forward to that. Also, but at the same time, I'm hoping that we can find ways to help those that are currently working here and, you know, to move up within the company. So some of them feel like they're kind of stagnant and unable to move, and just a number when they apply for apprentices jobs and all that stuff. So I'm hoping we can work towards, you know, finding programs to help them, you know, get the skills they need to move up within the company. So appreciate that. And then during the finance meeting, you know, I heard that we need to find ways to save the ratepayers' money and make JEA viable. Well, I hope that the board will ask the employees for ideas to do just that. So it was interesting over the weekend, you know, I had talked to a former JEA employee, and he was saying that they had a project that they were able to do in-house for a lot less money. You know, they still maintained what they were doing on the regular daily duties, and then they had to, you know, work a little bit of overtime. But at the same time, you know, which saved JEA thousands of dollars, you know, with this particular project. But then the same job came up, and, you know, the VP that was in charge of this group is no longer here, but he thought the perception of the employees working overtime were more concerning than saving the savings that you know, would have been, by using the employees, could have been saved in the long run. So, so we also need to get away from the mentality of doing things just because that's the way it's always been done. You know, I know we have quite a few employees that are willing and able to help you find ways to save JEA money. They have great ideas, and they're willing to share if somebody's willing to listen. So I hope, you know, this committee will somehow have board will have some kind of committee that will allow some kind of program that the employees will be able to give their ideas that will help JEA in the long run. So I appreciate it. Last but not least, I talked to Jay, you know, as we are kind of getting out of this COVID situation and we're able to volunteer a little bit more. We are very proud to be part of this community, and so we are looking forward to getting out there a little bit further or a little bit more, you know, and volunteering as we are able to. I've already showed gave Jay a shirt similar to this, and I've got some shirts here that I would like to share with the board, and it just basically says a day of action, you know. So we're going to be out there supporting this community, because as they did when we were going through this crisis ourselves, and they supported us. So this is just a little piece of us giving back to the community. So I appreciate your time and look forward to a very productive meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. And I can assure you, especially with regard to the diversity issue, that we're all over that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I neglected to say that each of these comments should be limited to 3 minutes if you possibly can. Next on the list is Mike Register, or Resistor, I guess. Is that how you say it? Register. Okay.
It's like cash register.
And with the St. John's Water Management District. And are you speaking with Mary Ann Winkler?
Mary Ellen Winkler, yes.
Mary Ellen.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I am Mike Register, Director of Water Supply Planning for the St. John's River Water Management District. And I'm here today to provide a little bit of background information on some proposed minimum levels that we're adopting for Lakes Brooklyn and Geneva, or MFLs. After our governing board approved the revised MFLs and the associated recovery strategy in April, the North Florida Utility Coordinating Group, including JEA, filed petitions for the existing MFLs of the lakes and the recently approved recovery strategy. We also understand that you have approved filing a challenge to the proposed MFL as well. I apologize that we didn't get the presentation in time for everybody to be able to see it. For those members that are in the room here, I have passed out a hard copy of it. Lakes Brooklyn and Geneva are located in Clay and Bradford counties adjacent to the city of Keystone Heights. The lakes are part of a chain of lakes in the upper Edna Creek Basin. They're sandhill lakes that are well connected to the upper Florida aquifer and are now among the most studied lakes in our district. Minimum levels for Lakes Brooklyn and Geneva were originally adopted in 1996, but they were done so without the benefit of a ground or surface water model. After these models were developed to allow for an assessment of these levels, concerns were raised about the levels and the district committed to a reevaluation. After working for over a decade on this, the district has completed the reevaluation of the minimum levels for Lakes Brooklyn and Geneva in 2020. Now, just a bit of background on minimum flows and levels. The water management districts are directed by statute to establish minimum flows and levels that set the limit at which further withdrawals would be significantly harmful to the water resources or ecology of the area. And in establishing these limits pursuant to the Water Resource Implementation Rule in Florida statute, the district must consider non-consumptive uses and other environmental values. And on the slide, there is slide 5, I believe it is, there are 10 water resource values listed that must be considered. And they include recreation in and on the water and also aesthetic and scenic attributes of the water body, in addition to fish and wildlife, estuarine resources, and other environmental criteria. Models and methods used to develop these minimum levels, the revised ones for the lakes, went through an independent scientific peer review and where they were reviewed by independent outside consulting firms. Input was also sought from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, all of which were supportive of our approach. Interested stakeholder groups like the North Florida Utility Coordinating Group and the Save Our Lakes organization were also consulted throughout the process. On the slide there is just a listing of the many meetings that we had just in the last year, but there have been a lot of other meetings over the years. The final criteria and analysis used for the development of the MFLs and the recovery strategy incorporated stakeholder and peer review comments and recommendations. So after an exhaustive investigation of the criteria, the final ones are listed there on the slide, and they include a lake globe connection metric, 5 fish and wildlife metrics, an open water metric, an average depth metric, a lake surface area metric, and a minimum infrequent high that prevents upland encroachment. The open water metric was the most restrictive criteria evaluated, and it has been suggested by some of the stakeholders that this is only an aesthetic and recreational metric. But this metric actually provides protection of habitats not afforded by those near shore metrics I mentioned for fish and wildlife, including deep habitats that large fish use as thermal refuge to escape predators and for resting. Some game fish spend the majority of their time in this deep habitat, and the use of just the near shore metrics alone would not provide sufficient protection for these species. However, this metric does also ensure adequate protection of the recreational values provided by open water. What makes a lake is the open water part of the lake. The next slide, I think it's slide 9 with the yellow highlights on it, show what we have to do next, which is an evaluation of those metrics to see if they're being met under current pumping conditions. The negative numbers on the lake show that the levels are already busted, and the positive numbers show that additional pumping could occur before that metric is violated. As you can see, the open water metric is the most restrictive, and it puts it in recovery, which requires the district to also develop a recovery strategy to recover those lakes within the planning horizon. As a part of the rule development process, stakeholders have the opportunity to propose lower cost regulatory alternatives to the rule. The North Florida Utility Coordination Group collectively, and JEA, Gainesville Regional Utilities, and Clay County Utility Authority individually proposed an alternative that is equivalent to the minimum frequent high that's shown on the first row of that slide, which happens to be the least restrictive criteria while ignoring all the others. And the last slide shows that this alternative that was proposed would allow the median water level in the lake to be lowered by more than 14 feet, effectively turning it into a wet prairie. The district doesn't believe that this or the other two regulatory alternatives accomplish the objectives of the MFL statute, So we voted to reject those in the rule adoption hearing that we had at last month's meeting. I do appreciate, and I know I'm running over time, but I appreciate the collaboration that your staff had with us on this, and really hope that we can continue to work forward toward protecting these vital systems and also meeting the water demands of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary Ellen Winkler?
Nothing further.
Okay. Vivian Katz-James with the Save Our Lakes of Keystone Heights.
Right. Vivian Katz-James, Save Our Lakes, Keystone Heights, Florida. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I began serving as president of the Save Our Lakes organization in 2009 and continued in that role for over 10 years. I continue today as their vice president and spokesperson. I tell you that to say this is not a new situation. I am here to give you a different perspective. How decisions in Jacksonville affect the Keystone Heights Lake region. What's Keystone's role in this? We are one of two major recharge areas for the Floridan aquifer. JEA pumps water from that aquifer to provide for your customers. As Senator Rob Bradley so succinctly stated, there are no bad guys here. It's JEA's responsibility to provide water for an ever-growing population. We get it. We understand that. We understand your concerns, but we ask that you consider our concerns. We were once a thriving lake community. Starting in the mid-'70s, our lake started drying up. What we now know, we are the canary in the coal mine. Lakes Brooklyn and Geneva reflect the health of the Floridan aquifer. In order to protect Florida's water, the water districts are required to set MFLs on certain water bodies throughout the state. The MFLs for Lakes Brooklyn and Geneva have been reevaluated, and new numbers have been established and approved by the St. John's Governing Board. This is not new. It has been in process, and it actually started in 2010 and moved forward to the front burner in 2017. The Water District has actively engaged all interested stakeholders. We have had input as well as the North Florida Utilities Group, JEA being a member of that group. We have all had the opportunity to give our input. It's time to move forward to accept the MFLs as approved by the Governing Board. Former St. John's Board Assistant Executive Director Dave Fisk once told me, "Vivian, it's going to take new water to fix this problem. That means finding creative ways to conserve, use, and reuse the rainfall God provides. Those who pump large quantities from the Floridan aquifer must participate in fixing the problem." The St. John's staff is currently working on the Black Creek Water Resource Development Project. This project will be a win-win for the region. I have talked with several utility leaders, and some of those JEA. All agree this project will bring significant recharge to the Floridan aquifer, bring recovery to dry lakes, meet MFLs. This is some of the new water Dave Fisk was talking about. The utilities do not legally have to participate in this project. It's simply the right thing to do. Petitions are not the answer. The answer is understanding your part and responsibility in providing water for your customers, not at the expense of another community, but as partners in managing Florida's precious water. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank all of you. We appreciate your input. Jay, can you give us your report, please?
Mr. Chair, we need to see if there's any body online to give public
Okay.
comment. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. No.
The public comment, if there's anyone, and Landon, if you want to walk us through that process.
Yes. For public comments via Webex, we will be using the raised hand feature today. Inside the Webex client, this feature is located within the participant window. At the top of the list, your name will be visible, and to the right, you will notice a gray icon that looks like a hand. If you click it, it will turn blue, letting me know that you like to be recognized for comment. Now, for those that have dialed in, you may press *3 on your telephone to also activate this feature. Now, I do see that we do have one hand raised within the Webex client today. I'd like to go ahead and recognize Betsy Condon for public comment. And you may now proceed by unmuting your line.
Are you able to hear me?
We are now, yes.
Yes, we're.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Betsy Condon, and I am a resident of Keystone Heights, lifelong, and my family has owned property on Lake Brooklyn for over 70 years, and they originated from the Jacksonville area. I also serve as the elected county commissioner for Clay County, District 4, which includes Keystone Heights. I'm speaking today on behalf of my constituents and my own interests, not on behalf of the Board of County Commissioners. We have a meeting later today to discuss some of these things, and so I don't want to mislead that I'm representing the Board of County Commissioners. However, I wanted to just express I would appreciate you as a board directing your staff and your legal counsel to continue to work with the St. John's Water Management District to solve this issue. Some of the petitions that have been filed would cut off your nose to spite your face, because in the event that those minimum flow levels are taken to the wet prairie stage, you won't be pumping for very long. And you would effectively lose the water that you need to provide to your customers. I've seen a lot of your recent television commercials talking about JEA's commitment to the environment and protecting the environment. And the public knows that you all are working very hard to restore the reputation of JEA. And I appreciate all of you serving and being on today, and clearly you care. And so I just wanted to express this is an opportunity for JEA to step up and be a leader. Instead of being the 800-pound gorilla who can kind of direct things, you can be the 800-pound hero in this and really come out and support the Black Creek Water Resource Project or whatever environmental projects you want to participate in. But continuing to stall only negatively impacts the Florida Aquifer and Keystone Heights. And I'd invite any of you to contact me and come down. We can take you on a tour, show you around the area, really show you what the pumping for 30 years plus has done to our area, but also the opportunities that are still here. And it's not really just about saving a little 2 traffic light town. It really is about protecting the drinking water for all of North Florida. So I applaud your service. I applaud that you're willing to listen, and I just appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Condon.
So Landon, are there any other online speakers?
No, not at this time.
Okay, and I've been informed we do have one emailed comment, and that Jones is going to read the comment that was received by email.
Thank you.
We received a public comment from Webb Farber. The subject is Black Creek Water Resource Development Project. And his comment reads as shown in the Brooklyn Geneva MFL's report, it has now been 3 to 4 decades of impairments to Lake Brooklyn and Geneva and Keystone Heights due to regional groundwater withdrawals. This photo taken early one Sunday, and he did attach a photo as well, depicts conditions that occur when groundwater resources are stressed. The MFL reports show impacts of 5.3 feet on Geneva and 7 feet, as much as 11 feet on Brooklyn. These drawdowns continue to this day. I do not believe that Keystone Heights community's loss of these once natural and healthy lakes is well understood or appreciated by those that would allow the harm to perpetuate. After many iterations of St. John Water Management District's minimum levels determination, we now have adoption of minimal levels for the lakes. I believe this is the best version yet of lake levels specifications, although there will always be disagreement over these levels being either too high or too low. Nevertheless, there is a practical solution already in the works that can resolve the lake drawdowns as well as the ease restriction of regional groundwater withdrawals. The Black Creek Water Resource Development Project will significantly contribute to replenishing the Florida aquifer. This project is already over 50% funded, and the remainder of funding can be obtained by contributions shared by all water users, as is proper, resulting in very minimum per month expense. 25 years is long enough to kick any can down the road. Stress on the regional water supply will not fix itself. Attention should now be beneficially focused on solutions such as implementation of Black Creek Water Resource Development Project, beneficial to all of North Florida. Thank you, Webb Farber, Save Our Lakes organization.
Thank you, Madrika.
And that's it for the public comment.
Okay, that concludes the public comments, and we'll return to the Managing Director, CEO report, please.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Chair, and welcome to the board and to the public. We appreciate you being here. I'm going to touch on the Save Our Lakes discussion in just a couple of minutes. But I want to start by thanking Valerie and all of the people that you support and represent for the work that you all are doing. I want to encourage you to do exactly what you're doing is what we want to do too, is to have those discussions about how we can be better to serve the people of Northeast Florida, as you all have been doing for years. And so thank you for being here today and bringing that up. I'll have to go back and look and see if in our meeting we said that we were working to be viable. I think JEA is viable, has been viable, will be viable, and we're on this together to be able to be sure that that stays true. So thank you for being here. We are working every day to improve lives and build community. In the beginning of my time here, I was counting in weeks. I've gotten all the way up to counting in months, but now I'm crossing into half a year. So I might be able to stop doing that. But in the 6 months that I've gotten a chance to be part of this team, I continue to be grateful to be in Jacksonville among the people at JEA that are called to do just that, to improve lives and build community. Building community is something we focus on every day. Last month, we provided an update to the board about our focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are proud today to support the board's request to adopt a resolution making diversity a priority for our board makeup that we'll send to the city council and to the mayor. We share that priority throughout every level of our team and our organization. We're also building community by having hard conversations. We've started a program on crucial conversations, and as a nation, we're marking 1 year of the murder of George Floyd, and so now it's more important than ever for us to be able to have these discussions, to be able to share with each other what's going on so that we can improve lives of the employees and of Northeast Florida. And diversity, equity, inclusion is a big piece of that. So I'm glad that the board is willing and wanted and requested and asked for us to bring this resolution to you. We're also continue to focus on safety and wellness of our teammates. We've offered and continue to offer vaccines for employees, contractors, and their families. We'll spend some time this morning walking through our plans for transitioning out of the COVID work arrangements that we've had into flexibility in the idea of working from wherever so that we can do our best. Working from wherever will allow us to support our employees and our community the best way we can as this transition time and as we move into the new building next summer. Working hard to continue to fill the leadership team positions. I think we're on track for announcements about that in the summer. Valerie mentioned the early retirement that was available. People have, employees' applications are being accepted until June 30th. So not a whole lot have accepted, but it's an offer that I think I'm pleased that we were able to make that work. We're serving our community and improving lives with ambassadors and volunteers, with more than 60 employees that have become certified ambassadors who've been involved in 125 activities so far this year. Within our customer loyalty area, I'm proud to be part of an organization that at our very core is striking a balance between providing reliable, affordable, foundational services and ensuring our environment is protected and preserved. People in Northeast Florida are in good hands because day in and day out, JEA employees make every effort to be environmentally responsible, from reducing nitrogen in the St. Johns River reducing and decreasing our wastewater discharge to the river, increase our reuse water system, starting an electric IRP that will define our direction towards reducing emissions, increasing renewable resources. JEA employees and our board understand the critical role that we play in providing our area a healthy environment. Without a healthy environment, Jacksonville cannot thrive. We are integral part of the Jacksonville community. We also have to balance our financial health with our ability to provide low-cost service while improving lives and the environment. To that end, I appreciate that the Save Our Lakes group and the St. Johns River Water Management District were here today, and I wish that there was not a petition filed too. And I would request the St. Johns River District to sit down with us again. That was a timing issue. Once it was filed, we had to file the petition to be sure that we were able to address the concerns, which at this point are financial. I think it's interesting that one of the speakers indicated that 50% of this was funded. Our issue is not the lakes, the level. We also want to support this. We agree with you that it should be done because it's environmentally the right thing to do, and it's the right thing for Northeast Florida. The concern we have is the level of allocation of the dollars that the strategy would make us be responsible for, and simply would like to request the meeting to be able to have that discussion. If we can do that parallel with where the legal activities, the quasi-legal activities are, then I think we can move forward, and we want to come to resolution on this as well. So we support the lakes, we support you, and I appreciate that you came, because when people care about something, it shows, and we want to support the environment too. Last month, I mentioned some continued delays, concerns with Plant Vogel. The target in-service date for Vogel Unit 3 has shifted from November to January is what they've reported. We have a consultant that is looking at this, and we expect those delays may be 3 to 6 months more than that. We have no reason to expect productivity or schedule will do anything except increase financial impacts on JEA. And we're continuing to have conversations with MEAG as we move through this and try to deal with it in our budget and our finance. Later today, we'll present a summary of the 2022 budget. It's a relatively stable operating budget. We talked about it at Finance and Audit Committee. Today will be a summary of that. We do plan to add staff and employees that will cause labor increase more than there has been over the past years, but generally a stable operating budget. As far as capital, you'll see a modest increase on the electric side. On the water and wastewater side, this is the beginning of several years of significantly higher capital. The budget does include some proposed rate adjustments, fee changes that we have discussed over the last few months, and we'll have numerous discussions with Finance and Audit over the next couple of months. As Councilwoman DeFore mentioned, we're continuing to provide technical support to City Council with the efforts for the septic tank phase-out program and the potential of $100 million of new funding. The bill that's under consideration provides funding for the Riverview neighborhood, and that's next on the priority list, and we will work with the city to try to implement that the best way that we can. Also working with the water and wastewater team and the city to develop a plan to address septic tank issues in a more timely fashion. Currently, this is simplified but not overstated. Currently, we wait until City Council has funding, and then we begin a process. And what we are planning to do is to start a process of design and outreach sooner so that we can get to some percentage completion of design. And once the city has funds in place, then we will be able to move much more quickly than we have in the past. I think that will help the whole community move forward with some response and some answers for the septic tank phase-out program. Later today, we'll also present a new performance scorecard. The idea that we have is that we should be able to talk about the important matters, and we should be able to present that to the board. JEA has measures, and we've had measures in each specific area, and we've presented them in various different ways over the years. I think this format will show what we care about at the corporate level And what we care about is what we should be talking about, and this is the way that we can track. It is, forecasts are included in this. The forecast will get better as we improve this process, but this is not just a reporting tool. When we use it correctly, it will be a tool for us to build and deliver business excellence. So with that, I'm excited, as I have said over and over again, to be here. We are focused on improving lives and building community. We're going to continue to build an unbeatable team, which I got called out for saying that we're going to build an unbeatable team one time because we already have a pretty good team. We're just getting better at it. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here, answer any questions that you might have today. And I look forward to the meeting with the St. Johns River Management District whenever they're ready.
Questions of Jay? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Great report. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda. There are 3 items on that: the board minutes from April 27th, 2021, some budget transfers, and annual disclosure reports, and we do have an updated version at this table. Are there any questions, or is there any discussion that anybody would like to have on the items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, can we have a motion to approval?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Great. Okay, now for board consideration, we'll go to the monthly performance update. Brian Wagner.
Good morning, Chair Baker and members of the board. My name is Brian Wagner, and I'm the Director of Water Operations and Treatment Support Services, and I will be presenting the monthly performance update. First, I'm proud to recognize our System Operations and Control Center Customer Service Response Team. These are the first responders during an outage who work to restore power in a safe and efficient manner. Congratulations to this team for 3 years without a recordable injury. This month, our approach to reviewing JEA's performance is through an initial corporate scorecard. This scorecard will continue to evolve as it becomes the dashboard that we look at to understand how well we are doing at meeting our strategic goals. In its present form, it includes the measures that have in past months been reflected in a series of slides. These slides are still available in the additional information section of the board package. You will notice that we have indicated with a dot which of these measures are tied to the Pay for Performance program. We also provide directional indicators to tell us whether higher is good with an up arrow or lower is good with a down arrow. In the unbeatable team section, I will begin with safety. Through April, JEA's recordable incident rate is at 0.89. This is still within our goal of less than or equal to 1.4 and well below the industry average of 3.0. Moving down to customer loyalty section, customer satisfaction. While we are optimistic in building on the momentum of our most recent wave of customer satisfaction results, we project that residential and commercial customer satisfaction for FY21 will be in the 4th quartile. Environmental compliance, permit exceedances. We did experience a permit exceedance in the carbon monoxide limit under the alternate permit due to a longer than anticipated cold startup after an outage of Brandy Branch Unit 2, but anticipate we will stay within our goal of less than 4. In the business excellence section, I will begin with electric sales. Residential unit sales are up 7% due to a significant increase in degree days year to date and 9,717 new customer accounts. But these are partially offset by lower commercial and industrial sales. Water wastewater sales. Irrigation unit sales are down 21.5%, which is driven by above average rain days year to date. Revenue is up $40 million on the electric side by a customer fuel credit and higher unit sales, and is down $3 million on the water side due to lower unit sales. Our operations and maintenance expense is $12 million lower year to date than budgeted. That is $8 million on water and $4 million on electric. Fuel sales have increased due to higher than projected fuel prices. Capital expenses are currently forecasted at $413 million this year, which is well within the budgeted amount. Water, wastewater, and electric costs are all forecasted favorably, exceeding our cost control goals in each area. Electric reliability overall is performing as planned, with the exception of our generation fleet's effective forced outage rate, where prior month derates at our Northside generating station and a malfunction of a high-pressure non-return valve at Brandy Branch resulted in a short-duration forced outage. As of April 30th, we projected that we could still meet our goal of 2.5%, but currently a forced outage at Northside generating station will likely cause us to miss our goal for this fiscal year. Water outages. 455 customers have experienced an unplanned water outage this month due to 5 water main breaks. 4 additional water main breaks occurred that were the result of third-party damage and are not included in this metric. The pay for performance is currently projected at 3.3% of base salaries. And this concludes the monthly performance update. We are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions of Brian?
I just think, Mr. Chair, that this is a great chart. I love it. This thing says everything. I mean, you just get a good snapshot quickly, so I think it's great.
I would pile on to that. I think it covers the waterfront. It's concise. It's clear. It's very well done. Thank you, Jay, and thanks to the team. Thank you, Brian. You did a nice job on that.
And I would just add, if we had all green on this page, we weren't putting the right targets in place for pay for performance. So it appears that we've got a good balance of goals, because you shouldn't be all green for a pay for performance plan or someone sandbagged.
Agreed. I would like to disagree with you, but I can't.
I don't think you should all be green all the time.
Okay, we'll move on to the unbeatable team. David Emanuel, can you talk to us about diversity, equity, and inclusion and our proposal?
Thank you, Chair Baker, esteemed board members. We're presenting today that it's in your package, our resolution to continue to strive for diverse and inclusive JEA board representation. As presented, it reads the same way except for section 2, and I will read that out loud to you. The resolution 2021-11 be presented to the City Council President and the Mayor, requesting that during the member selection process, that consideration of the compilation of the board be considered and propose and select candidates that would provide for a diverse and inclusive board.
Okay, thank you. You all have seen that. Any discussion? Hearing none,
We'll need a motion.
yes.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Glad we did that. That was a great suggestion at the last meeting, and, we need to remember that when the time comes to reappoint or appoint new members, that we bring this up again, just so it doesn't slip.
Yes.
Pat Malis, can you talk about the COVID trends?
Good morning, Chair Baker and fellow members of the board. I'm Pat Malis, the Director of Employee Services, and I work with David Emanuel. This morning, I'm here to share some highlights on JEA's COVID transition. Over the last 15 months, the pandemic has driven JEA to develop new muscle, so to speak, with regard to where and how we work, with the main goal of keeping our workforce as safe as possible from the spread of COVID-19 while ensuring seamless operations for our customers. In the early stages of the pandemic, JEA participated in meetings with a consortium of energy and utility companies nationally to discuss and plan for each stage of reentry into the workplace. Like many companies across the country, JEA never stopped working. We worked differently. Earlier this year, the COVID response team was formed to gather and disseminate current information and trends concerning COVID and its possible impact on JEA. This team meets bi-weekly and consists of subject matter experts from communications, emergency preparedness, facilities, human resources, labor relations, electric and water, wastewater operations, safety, and security. The team closely monitors CDC and other leading health and infectious disease experts, as long as COVID-19 may potentially have an impact on our JEA team members and operations. Since the vaccines become more readily available, JEA has seen a steady decline in cases. JEA has begun easing COVID restrictions and will continue to do so as this trend continues to ensure a safe environment. Some of the protocols that we will continue to keep in place include daily janitorial cleaning of high-touch areas, social distancing in close contact areas where 6 feet may not be maintained, such as in the break rooms, locker rooms, restrooms, waiting areas, things of that nature. We'll continue to have hand washing signage throughout the organization and sanitizer throughout our facilities. Physical barriers for employees who work with the public will be encouraged and put in place. And then we will continue to encourage our employees, contractors, and family members to get vaccinated. As we move forward, the COVID response team will monitor updated guidance by the CDC and will make recommendations to adjust protocols as necessary. For a while, we talked about return to work July 1st, but that suggests that a couple of things, that we haven't been working all along and we go back to the way we worked prior to the pandemic, neither of which is true. We also realize there isn't really anything special about July 1st. We've already evolved over the last several months, and we will continue to well beyond that date in preparation for the move to the new building and a new hybrid model of working. JEA is going to use what we've learned over the last several months, work from wherever, which means work from wherever you need to work to do the job you have to do to the best of your ability. Your job may require you to work primarily out in the field, in the office occasionally, or primarily in the office and work site. We're letting go of the one-size-fits-all approach and see the possibilities new flexibility can bring. With that comes responsibility for us to think through all of the details, to stay true to working with integrity, courtesy, and respect, and to value the safety and well-being of our teammates wherever they are. I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Questions of Pat or of Jay?
Pat, I do have a question. There is some debate in the business community around how productive people really have been during COVID. I'll bring it up. And I wonder how you will measure productivity as you move into a work from wherever mode. And then the second part of that is, how do you address issues where productivity is lagging in a manner that's fair to all of the associates?
Mm-hmm. So I would say that we are probably a lot more productive. We use the Webex quite a bit. For a matter of fact, there's been a lot of exhaustion around Webex and Zoom. Our managers are encouraged to, set goals, manage those goals just like they would as if they were in the office. So while it is a little bit different of a setup, we're still maintaining those goals. And since Jay's come on board, there's been an even greater focus on setting those goals and meeting those goals in a more timely manner and communicating to employees. So we'll continue to operate in that manner. And we can take away from this meeting, a takeaway to look at how we are measuring and come back to the board. And the second part of your question
was just, how do you address issues where people are below those productivity goals in the spirit of fairness and transparency that we would expect for all of our associates?
Absolutely. And as I mentioned, we're going forward in a manner like we have in the past. We have our guidelines for performance management and discipline, and managers, as we've always done, will continue to monitor that. And again, what's not different is that we have processes in place to ensure that when there is a discipline situation, that we do that in a manner that follows those guidelines, follows those bargaining agreements. And we work with the bargaining units as well as our leadership and employees to try to work towards a good solution for everybody.
I'll add too that measuring productivity has not always been the thing that we were best at, regardless of where people happened to sit while they did their job, and it's something that we need to do more of. And part of even something that is as simple as beginning to track things on one location will help us to determine those types of activities. Half of our staff is in the field all the time. A big portion of the remaining half of our staff who might be in engineering or are in the field an awful lot anyway. And so a big chunk of the work that we have to do is being done in very similar ways that we've always done it. But the last year has taught us things, not just about the work from wherever sounds like you're talking about only in an office setting, but we also have determined that and we've done this before because of heat, but we are now coming in earlier at Pearl Street because we have a long way to drive and we've got some flexibility for crews that are going to go a long way to avoid traffic. That's something that was not something we had tried before. That makes us more productive. So there's examples of increased productivity. There's examples of decreased productivity. Some people don't work as well at home. They come to the office because we have the flexibility to allow them to do that. And we will continue to test this and determine whether we are meeting the expectations that we set and make adjustments as we need to. But I think it is providing the flexibility for our employees will allow us to attract a broader, more diverse group of candidates for jobs, and I think would make us stronger in the long haul. So we're going to.
Yeah, I'm supportive of it, obviously, because I'm supportive of you and the leadership team. I just, it will be interesting to see where we are 2 years from now.
Yes.
And if we do have the productivity that we expect.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're on it.
We've got to be on that. It's something we've got to be able to do better at tracking.
I was going to say, so you have to set up measures.
To set up measures. We have some measures in place. Are they the right ones? We'll make those adjustments as we go. But I think that the transition through COVID allowed us to ask the questions. The transition to the new building requires us to think differently. And the combination of those two things have put us in a unique spot to be able to try this, and then we'll find out how well we're doing.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, welcome, Tom. Thank you, sir. We are at the business excellence line, and we'll ask Julie Crawford to present the budget summary, please. And thank you, Pat.
Sure. All right, good morning, Chair Baker and board members. I'm Julie Crawford. I'm the Director of Financial Planning and Analysis, and today I will be presenting the proposed fiscal year 22 budget. Starting with the electric system, this chart depicts the history and proposed budget broken into budget components. We start at the top with megawatt hour sales, with the fiscal year 22 proposed based on historical trends. In the past, as reflected in the fiscal year 21 budget sales, we have provided a 5% contingency for weather impacts. However, we are proposing a more likely sales number for fiscal year 22. The 12.2 million megawatt hours results in a $1.29 billion budget. The increase in revenue, despite the lower sales, is due to the $100 million payment anticipated as a result of the plant shear shutdown agreement. The revenue also reflects a fuel charge decrease and a base rate increase. The colored bars represent budget expense categories that lead to a balanced budget. The fuel and purchase power category reflects higher purchase power expenses compared to last year's budget, but a more diverse fuel mix with an increase in renewables and the addition of nuclear. New purchase power items include Vogtle fuel and the fuel portion of the FPL purchase power agreement. However, a decrease in the other commodity expenses due to the lower sales projection results in an almost flat budget year to year. The fiscal year 21 fuel revenue budget was $411 million compared to $369 million in fiscal year 22, a result of lower sales and the proposed lower fuel charge. And the difference between these revenues and expenses are in the stabilization fund, the activity in which can be seen in the category marked other. Moving to operations and maintenance, fiscal year 22 is $17 million higher than the fiscal year 21 budget. The main drivers for the increase are labor, which we will discuss in detail later in the presentation, the lease payment for the new headquarters building, and increased outage expenses. I'll note that the historical delta of budget versus actuals for the electric system on average is $30 million, which is quite a bit. To ensure this trend does not continue going forward, we will be reevaluating our budgeting process. Moving to non-fuel purchase power, this category contains capacity-related expenses for generation we co-own or for power purchase agreements. Fiscal year 22 reflects SJRPP debt service. This year shut down in the second quarter, then replaced with a PPA with FP&L, and Plant Vogel coming online November of 21. Of the $100 million anticipated from FP&L, approximately $75 million will be used to pay off Shearer debt. The remaining $25 million will go to the stabilization fund to use for future Vogel expenses. The fiscal year 22 budget reflects $185 million to be utilized for capital. Looking at the bottom of the slide, this amount from current year revenues combined with $56 million withdrawn from the capital fund will support a CapEx budget of $241 million. The majority of the capital plan is for system maintenance, with large projects including $30 million for the new headquarters building, $10 million for a 69 kV rebuild, and $9 million for work at the Kennedy Generation Station. Moving along, debt service is budgeted lower than fiscal year 21, which is a result of previous year's early debt retirement. And the city contribution is based on the current agreement. All right, moving on to water. This chart is similar to the previous one. It depicts the water and sewer history and proposed budget broken into budget components. We're forecasting fiscal year 22 sales at 73,000 kgals, resulting in a $542 million budget compared to a $512 million budget last year. The budget includes increased capacity fees, which will be brought before the board in June. The largest component of the budget is the amount allocated for capital at $233 million. Looking at the table at the bottom, this amount with approximately $130 million of new debt will support the $362 million capital plan. The plan contains significant expansion projects like $30 million for the Southwest Water Reclamation Facility expansion and $26 million for the Greenland Water Reclamation Facility. Moving on to O&M, our operations and maintenance budget is $4 million higher than our fiscal year 21 budget, mainly driven by labor and the water and sewer portion of the new headquarters lease. Debt service is slightly higher than fiscal year 21, and the city contribution is based on our current agreement. And the interlocal payment section contains a 10-year prepayment to Nassau County, in addition to recurring annual payments to Clay County and St. Johns County. All right, drilling into total labor costs, base payroll expenses are increasing 6% compared to fiscal year 21. This represents a combination of an approximately 3.5% base salary escalation and funding for an additional 25 allocations for positions needed to support system growth expected to be filled in fiscal year 22. And the increase in headcount is reflected in the attached schedules, resulting in 2,183 positions. Our benefits include $6 million for pay for performance, and the pension expense is increasing due to a combination of costs incurred during the year and an increase in the amortization of the accrued unfunded liability. Total government transfers via the JEA bill estimated for fiscal year 22 is $307 million, with $253 million going to the city of Jacksonville. The contribution amount is based on our current agreement effective through 2023, and we will start discussions on a new agreement next year. In addition to the summary information provided, there are detailed schedules attached to the board materials, including the DES fiscal year 22 operating and capital budgets for your reference. Following this review, staff will bring the fiscal year 22 operating and capital budget, as well as the SJRPP and Plant Shearer budgets, to the board for approval in June, then we'll transmit to the City Council for final action. And just lastly, I want to take a moment to thank my budget teams, both the operating and the capital teams, for all of their hard work in creating this budget. They collaborate with all areas of the organization, and they compile hundreds and hundreds of line items to consolidate into the proposal you saw today. And with that, I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you, Julie. Any questions of Julie? I think you all have done a wonderful job of putting this together. We're not going to vote on it today. We'll vote on it next month. That's just for your information and trying to get it to sink in over a period of time. It's a lot of money. Next, we'll go to Hurricane Preparedness. Brandon Edwards.
Yes, good morning, Chairman Baker and fellow board members. My name is Brandon Edwards, JEA's Director of Security and Emergency Preparedness. As I'm sure you're all aware, the time has come once again for hurricane season. This morning, I'd like to discuss with you JEA's preparation measures and readiness steps in 2021. Hurricane season is an annual event that spans from June 1st to November 30th. This is a significant time period for our community and a critical event for JEA to ensure we are prepared to address any challenging storms. From these images of the damage caused by Hurricane Irma, you can clearly see the significant impact that a single storm can have on our community, and it is our charge as the community's utility organization to be ready. In addition to the numerous other unique challenges of 2020, it was a record-breaking hurricane season. Last year, we recorded 30 total storms, surpassing the 28 storms in 2005. In addition, this was the second time in history that the Greek alphabet was used to name storms from September to November. For this year, we are once again looking at a higher than average forecast with a predicted 16 to 20 total storms, 7 to 10 hurricanes, and 3 to 5 major hurricanes. An important note, this year, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, their Climate Prediction Center, updated their 30-year period of record. This new period of record is from 1991 to 2020 and was adjusted to ensure that their forecasts take into consideration the most relevant climate statistics. Now, let's discuss JEA's preparations for the upcoming season. JEA is entering into the storm season with a new leadership and extended leadership team. With these leadership changes, we also have several new section chiefs and unit leaders within our incident command structure. While we still have many long-term employees engaged, we are focusing on getting the new team up to speed with their new positions within our response structure and JEA's protocols for storm response and restoration. On May 5th, the City of Jacksonville's Emergency Preparedness Division conducted a training session with this new team on the National Incident Management System and our integration with the city's resources. This provided them with valuable insight and refresher training on the functions of the NIMS Incident Command System and their individual responsibilities. JEA is also focusing on the continuous improvements and lessons learned from previous storm events and how we communicate with our customers. We've learned so much from these past events, and I'll share more details on our hardening programs and communication programs later in this presentation. Lastly, one of our most significant preparation steps is our annual hurricane exercise. This is a joint exercise with the City of Jacksonville Emergency Preparedness Division and was completed last week. The exercise was a 3-day event that took the JEA Incident Command Team through the phases of preparedness, response, and demobilization for a fictitious hurricane named Saturn. This year's concept challenged the team with a split scenario in the preparedness stage. Hurricane Saturn looked to be a direct Category 4 hit to Jacksonville, and the team had to make critical continuity of operations decisions. However, on the final days of approach, the storm changed to a lesser Category 1 event. This change forced the teams to operate a normal storm response, having already potentially made significant storm decisions. In addition, this year JEA exercised our demobilization process for our services. Demobilization refers to the stage of an event where we shift from storm response back to providing the traditional services of JEA. Now, on the surface, this may sound like a simple process, but in reality, it can be quite challenging after any extended duration of emergency activation. Resources can be scattered throughout the service territory, and physical exhaustion becomes a critical consideration. Overall, the exercise was a tremendous success, with the team enhancing our ability to work within ourselves and with the resources of the City of Jacksonville. For the upcoming season, a continued consideration for preparation is the impact that COVID-19 will have on our operations. For more than a year, certain JEA employees have learned to operate remotely from their primary business location. This has resulted in a real-world test of business continuity plans for numerous departments. Employees have learned to become more mobile and adaptable to working environments with minimal impact to our operations. This experience may prove to be invaluable when dealing with a storm situation. For our storm restoration teams, JEA has doubled the number of staging areas to keep crews separated and create drive-through stations for crews to collect materials. Support vendors will be required to wear proper protective equipment and follow social distancing guidelines. Damage assessors will no longer meet at a central location for assignments, but will deploy from a multitude of locations throughout the city. Finally, access to critical buildings, even during the damage assessment phase, will be highly controlled to minimize the risk to our plant and system operators. All of these efforts are focused to do all we can to keep our team healthy while we work to restore our community. Now let's discuss some of the system hardening efforts of our operational team. Starting with electric operations, JEA continues to deploy distribution system devices to reduce the frequency and duration of extended outages for our customers. These devices attempt to isolate a fault in our system closer to its actual location to minimize the number of impacted customers. These also give us improved operational visibility into our electric system, enabling overall faster response times. JEA continues with our proactive programs such as pole replacements, vegetation management, and equipment infrared scan. In addition, we have targeted programs at reducing extended customer outages by implementing upgraded hardware such as fiberglass equipment, animal guarding, and more extensive vegetation work where applicable. All of this work is critical to ensuring the resiliency of our electric system. Now, on the water wastewater side of JEA, the water wastewater operations continue to improve the JEA geospatial interactive 3D map that displays real-time operational data of our water assets, including over 1,500 pump stations. This data includes numerous health aspects of the particular location, such as well levels, water pressures, and the status of the on-site generators. This information is vital to making critical system decisions during a storm event. On the resiliency side, JEA has added more than 130 generators and 100 pumps to back up our pump stations, with plans to add more throughout this year. We also evaluated the electric services at 181 facilities and performed upgrades as needed. At some of our larger, more critical pump stations, we've converted from overhead to underground electric services to improve reliability. Lastly, earlier this year, JEA completed a Resiliency Framework study, which included a system-wide assessment of vulnerability to rainfall events, flooding, and sea level rise. Cost-benefit analysis were used to develop adaptation strategies, which focused on elevating and hardening assets and installing perimeter barriers. We are continuing to update our design and construction standards and have begun to implement capital improvement projects to minimize our risk. Now, with that note, I'll turn the presentation over to David Goldberg to discuss customer and community engagement plans for this season.
Thank you, Brandon. Good morning, Chair Baker and JEA board members. I'm David Goldberg, Director of Customer and Community Engagement, and I'm also JEA's Public Information Officer during Gray Sky events. Thank you for the opportunity to take you through a high-level overview of our storm restoration process. After Hurricanes Irma and Matthew, a large cross-functional committee worked for several months to improve our storm restoration process and close the gaps on operational, technical, and communication issues we had experienced during those storms. As a result, we ended up developing a whole new process that would lend itself to improved management of our operational decision-making, as well as our customer communications. We refer to this process as Restoration 123, and it has continued to be utilized since, both internally and externally in our customer messaging. Restoration 123 is broken down into 3 phases. One of the benefits of doing so is that if we have a major event and cannot be certain of when all power will be restored, we can have a much better idea of how long each phase will last, and sharing that type of information goes a long way with our customers. With Restoration 123, we are able to notify customers when their neighborhoods will be worked on and create more geographic specific times of restoration. The 3-phase approach also allows us to let our customers know how we work through the process and sets expectations much better than we were able to do before. During phase 1, we are focused on repairing our major grid deficiencies, hospitals, health centers, and public safety facilities. We heavily promote our outage map on JEA.com, which has real-time information and allows customers to see that we are aware of the outage. We do this via email, social media, text, IVR, and the news media. We work closely with the city on unified messaging, stay in contact with our key commercial accounts, and work closely with the media to ensure we are getting our messages out. Phase 2 occurs when Incident Command determines we have completed the main infrastructure repairs and are ready to focus on individual circuits, which there are more than 300 throughout our grid. When we move into Phase 2, we anticipate 30 to 50% of all customers will have power restored, as the Phase 1 infrastructure repairs will have addressed much of the damage due to the way the grid operates. Multiple crews work to restore power to circuits, along with customer service liaisons who ride along with the crews to answer customer questions, report back issues, and free up the crew members so they can focus on what they do best, power restoration. Customer emails are sent out along with outage notifications via text, email, and voice. Customers are encouraged to visit our JEA.com outage map and social media to get updates and be able to see the status of the area. Our messaging during this phase will be action-oriented with a focus on results and headway we are making so people can see the progress, which instills confidence and reassurance. We'll be taping videos of our EOC, crews at work, and others to share online. As this past hurricane season, these were extremely well received and made people feel connected with us, seeing all we were doing. We also have an expanded team of folks who will be able to reply on social media and take customer calls, so we can respond to individual concerns and ensure we are providing updates. And lastly, outreach crews are stationed at different shelters and other key locations with computers, bottled water, and other resources to assist customers with information or special needs. Once all circuits have been addressed and the repairs that are made are isolated to issues that are neighborhood or home specific, we move into Phase 3 and begin to transition from gray sky to blue sky. When we begin Phase 3, we can typically expect 90 to 95% of all homes to have power restored. In blue sky mode, our crews continue to work and make sure that every last customer has power. We continue to message regularly to our customers en masse, as well as send out targeted messaging to customers still affected by the storm. As you can imagine, those still without power in Phase 3 will require extra attention, so we will proactively send outreach liaisons to those areas to assist these customers with their unique needs and make sure they're tended to as possible. When we created Restoration 123, in addition to developing this phased approach, we could follow internally. We believed using this approach to educate our customers would be a true game changer. And for the past 3 hurricane seasons, our service territory has been heavily exposed to JEA's Restoration 123 process, and we've gotten a lot of positive feedback. Our education to customers promotes the importance of them being prepared, making sure that customers' account information is up to date, signing up for outage alerts, and visiting JEA.com for updates before, during, and after the storm. We run our Restoration 123 messaging across all paid, owned, and shared media channels, and work with news media to make sure our customers are familiar with the process and know we are well prepared. This year, I'm excited to share we've added another level of education and engagement. If you recall, we created Do More with JEA.com, a microsite that complemented the campaign we just ran this past several months, educating customers on savings tips, programs, and services. For hurricane season, we are launching a whole new experience on that site that allows users to toggle from blue sky mode to gray sky mode. In this mode, instead of seeing what was there before, the scenes change to resemble a post-storm event, and all the information changes to storm preparation tips and restoration education. We will even have a campaign to increase engagement and offer gift cards for people to stock up on supplies. And so now, to give you a sense of how we message our Restoration 123 phased approach, we are pleased to now share with you one of our 30-second TV spots that will begin running this week. How'd you like it? See if we can get it up.
After a major storm, you can count on JEA to safely restore power as quickly as possible, beginning with critical infrastructure, hospitals, shelters, and police and fire stations. Next, we put all of our resources into restoring power to neighborhoods and businesses. And we won't stop until every customer's outage is resolved. Because when the community you serve is home, there's more than power on the line. Learn more at domorewithjea.com.
Thank you all for your time.
Questions of Brandon or David?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chair. For Brandon, when you did the preparedness drill, did you have external agencies like FEMA, state and national ones that would be part of a hurricane response? Were you able to practice coordinating with them and using the communications plan?
Thank you for the question. So for this particular drill, our primary interface was with the City of Jacksonville Emergency Preparedness Division. Our logistics team did go through their plan and process to verify their points of contact, but primarily we would interface and send our resource request to the COJ.
Okay. Good. Thanks.
I've got a quick follow-up for Brandon, if I may. Unfortunately, living through the experience in Panama City down in October of 18, I'm wondering, have you run the scenario in reverse, something that was predicted as a category 1 or 2 that escalated to a 5 at the last minute?
Great question.
No, sir, we did not for this particular exercise. Our focus at this exercise was kind of getting the new leadership team and extended leadership team up to speed with their positions. Primarily, the storm scenario, we try to mimic things that are more common for the region. So for this event, we went from a 4 to a 1, and we primarily went from a 4 to a 1 just so the team had an actual thing to practice their storm restoration function instead of the larger scale where there's more of a relocation of assets and coming back into the community.
So I'm going to take a stab at both of those questions. I think that one of the best practices that we need to move towards is doing what you described, which is and I've talked to Alan McElroy, whose group is responsible for managing this. We need to set up scenarios where we test out everything. Mm-hmm. On your point, we work towards developing a playbook that will define if this happens, these are the things that we'll do. This flows into the concepts that we're talking about on the resiliency beyond hurricanes, because it could be other things. And then we will run into problems, and then we will solve the problems, but we should know ahead of time enough to be able to get resources that we need in place in time and be able to ramp those resources. And so, again, the team and I have talked a lot about not letting resources be the issue and be prepared to make those decisions. We haven't tested that, as you described, and we haven't tested the interaction with the partners, but we know who they are, and each of the division chiefs that we have relationships with them, and they have had conversations, and so that part is working well. How to ramp up in case the situation changes on the ground is something we need to be sure we're ready for. So thank you for the question. We'll work on that.
Absolutely. Even connecting with the utility in that area to kind of review the hot wash from what happened there and the lessons learned may be of value.
So we reference vegetation management. There are some in our community that would call that something different. We have a beautiful tree canopy and typically are older neighborhoods, right? We're lucky that so much of our distribution is underground, and we continue to work with communities to migrate to underground. Not this year, maybe, like by the end of the year, but we should probably represent the ways that people put their neighborhood utilities underground. There's a great system to do that, because we will hear from people when we go out and manage our vegetation, because it turns into, I mean, it's a V-cut tree. I mean, we have to do it for obvious reasons, but I think the community needs to understand that we can get their power underground with their help.
I think that's true, and the methods that we use for vegetation management have gotten better, and we have a great team of certified arborists that are in place, and our project outreach team that works with communities, both to describe the overhead underground transition and just the regular and normal routine vegetation management.
I'm just drawing on previous JEA board experience.
It is.
I got more phone calls about trees.
Yep.
And restoration of power. We will all get phone calls about restoration of power. I think that the outage maps and the program we use is incredible compared to where we were last time I was on the board. But, you know, the protocols still, I believe, restore the most, we get to the lines that restore the most power to the most houses first.
That's right.
So that person that's at the end of one line will be persistent, and they will keep reaching out to us. But I think leveraging the tools that we have in place and the methodology that we have in place is important.
Methodology, tools, and communication, all of those are critical, and testing and practice. Yeah.
And feeding the linemen. We've got to make sure they get fed because we need them working.
Oh, yes.
David, in reading the materials, it talked about sending emails and keeping our customers up to date, but the way I read it, it was up to the customers to make sure that they gave JEA their email address. And for this really to be effective, we obviously need to have almost everybody's email address. Is there a way we can do an active request for that so that we can be better communicators?
That's a great question, Chair Baker, and I agree. There is always opportunity for us to do more to try and reach our customers to get them to update that type of important information. We actually do through our campaign, which is running as of this week. And we do it year round, to be honest, in terms of trying to get people to update their contact information, sign up for alerts, make sure their phone numbers, cell phone, email is up to date. But this particular point of time, we do message heavily about making sure that information is updated. We do it through bill inserts. We do it through our emails, not just our monthly emails, but we do it through social media. We actually have campaigns that we run that are incentivizing customers to do so as well. About 80% of our customers have email addresses that we believe to be accurate. And part of the issue, to your point, which is a great point and something that we struggle with at times, is to encourage people to update their email, make sure their email addresses are accurate, because if you don't have an accurate one online, then you're not getting the right information from us. And so one thing I just want to stress is that email is one certain important way to receive information, but people can also sign up for those outage alerts, text, where we can provide them texts as well. And so, yes, that is an extremely important point you're making.
Thank you. It sounds like you're way down the road, a lot more than I expected. That's great. Okay, any other questions? Then we'll move to the committee reports. General, can you give us the governance report?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we met on 6 May, and a good meeting. First thing, though, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes from our last governor's meeting, which was actually 10 November, and that simply was when we made a presentation, or did our final look for the JEA Board Policy Manual and agreed to action for full board approval, which we did at our board meeting on 17 November. But we just never did approve the minutes from that 10 November Governor's Committee meeting. So if I could have a motion for that, please.
So moved. Second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. So we did 3 parts to our Governor's Committee meeting on 6 May. First one, we talked about Article 21 compliance, And bottom line is, JEA and the JEA Board are in compliance to date. Again, this is with the new Article 21 that City Council approved back in December. And also, Jody and Dee Jonagran are helping with what I'm calling the chart from hell, which is really a tracking matrix that'll show reports, expenses, et cetera, that we owe the city via this via the Article 21 charter for that. And bottom line is, we're right now tracking to make all those expenses. Most of them are end of fiscal year reports, basically. Second thing, we discussed our board's external review, which actually is in progress, where JEA has contracted a firm called Hometown Connections to examine and critique our governance practices. And these folks are currently interviewing the management team. And then, if I understand it right, they'll proceed on to the senior leadership team in J, and then to us, the board. And I think all this is supposed to happen within 30 days, about. And so this will be good to have external eyes take a look at how we're doing our governance, and probably give us good advice on where to fire and adjust if necessary. And then lastly, we discussed the strategy retreat, which we'll do at the 27th, at the July 27th board meeting, and it'll be the part 2 of that in the afternoon. And really, the objective of this strategy retreat is to kickstart our 5-year strategic plan. And there we plan on discussing each strategic focused area: unbeatable team, customer loyalty, and business excellence, and then begin the process of teasing out the objectives and measures of effectiveness that'll comprise this 5-year strategic plan. And those measures of effectiveness, Marty, that'll address the issue you brought up earlier today on how are we performing, so we can actually be able to evaluate that and hit those important areas. I think this will be a great agenda for and provide good foundation to get that 5-year strategic plan kicked off for that. And we'll probably have around 2 or 3 hours focused on that. So I think it's good. And it'll be a very good session for us in the afternoon after the board meeting on the 27th of July. And that was it.
Questions?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, there was one other action item that occurred at the meeting on the adoption of the agenda. And so what happens typically on the committee reports, because there's not public comment period during the committee, after the report out of the committee chair, after Mr. DeSalvo's report, if I could ask for a motion to approve his report out that would include the adoption of the agenda for that May 6th meeting.
Okay, can we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Jody.
I'm going to follow that bouncing ball somewhere. Okay, thank you, Jody, for keeping.
And we'll do another motion
I was
for
going to
your
say,
report out on
I
the
was
finance
just
and audit.
thinking, we're going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, Marty, can you give us a finance and audit?
Absolutely. Finance and Audit met on May 14th. We had a full agenda. The package is attached in the back of your board package. Several updates. We did have a deep dive into the draft budget that you saw from Julie. We will present that as she indicated to you for approval in June, and we will submit in July to City Council. Special note, the rate increase is embedded into the budget. And obviously, if that does not go through, we will have to revise the budget, but we will submit the rate increase to the City Council in July. We had robust conversations around the difference between budget actuals and budget forecasts, and we've agreed that we're going to look at forecasting a little bit different go forward. There's a huge delta between those two, and we thought we should have a little less tolerance for such deviation between the actual and the forecast. We asked for a briefing on fuel cost adjustment, which will obviously, again, be presented at a future meeting. Thank you, Julie, for addressing the 6% base salary increase. That got a lot of conversation during the meeting as well. We reviewed proposed rates and fees increases. Very pleased that lowering the fuel charge with a higher base rate will really net to our ratepayer, no difference in their total bill, and that's a good outcome. Anytime you can keep an increase neutral to the ratepayer, it's a good thing. We will be asking for a rate hearing in August, and the rates would be effective in October. During the dialogue, we discussed the time frame of rate increases, particularly as it relates to budget, and we've agreed to keep it in line with what staff has recommended. Discussion around the recent dialogue with the builders and developer groups, and we know that they can come talk to us during those rate hearings, and we look forward to hearing from them if they have any concerns. We asked for more peer comparisons as it relates to the development community, particularly as it pertains to total impact fees. There's some communities in our surrounding areas that have actually a different structure on capacity and impact fees. We had no issues of concern from the audit team. We did not discuss the ethics information because we had so much else to discuss, but there were no questions or comments on the information that was presented, and our next meeting will be July 16th.
As an addition, I think you hit on it, but we had not increased our capacity fees on water for 15 years, and the committee thought that was going a little long, and now we're way behind as a result. So,
and I think, John, to your point, that we need to probably have a better cadence of talking about when we increase rates go forward.
And Mr. Chair, can I ask
Here
for
you go.
a
I'll
motion to approve the report and actions taken at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting
Move the
that was
motion.
just reported on?
we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I could, real quick, part of that, on that finance and audit, I tuned into it, and that was a great session, by the way, and the Finance and Audit Committee is like the center of gravity for this whole thing, so Marty, you do a great job, and the committee members. But also, cyber came up, and anyway, I think, Mr. Chair, you made a comment about cyber risk, making sure that we're staying on top of it, and so on the Governors Committee, we can go ahead and get something to account for how we are evaluating our cyber risk posture within JEA. And it's also pretty timely because APPA just sent out 2 very good documents on a cyber attack playbook and also ransomware, what to do in case that stuff happens. And Jay, I'll send you those 2 documents. I just got them last night. But anyway, that cyber thing is going to be continually get more important or whatever. And so we'll figure out a way to stay on top of it from a governance aspect.
In reading the descriptions of the committee, I had made the recommendation that we give it to governance, give cyber to governance. Reading the descriptions of what the committees do, it would seem, it almost seems inappropriate to give it to governance, and it should be going to finance and audit. But there's so much under finance and audit, and you're uniquely equipped to do that. Is there something we could do to change the governance committee to allow them to be the keeper of?
Yeah, there's a charter for each of the committees, and you can always bring back suggested language or revisions to the charter.
Can we do that the next time they meet?
We can. I would also add that I think part of what we need to look at is not just one issue and one committee, but as part of our strategic discussions, what issues should be in what group.
Right.
And I'm at the risk of talking off the top of my head, should diversity, equity, inclusion be in a meeting? Where is that discussed in a committee? Is the committee the right place for that, or should it be more broad? Cyber is another piece of the risk in general. It's called out in finance and audit because it falls under audit, but how do we deal with risk? Cyber, one of them. So I think over the next couple of months and as we move into July, we should be able to define that. And in the meantime, if there's issues that come up, we'll figure out the right place to have the discussions for sure. But I think we have to deal with it and get it in the right place.
And we need to get a calendar
Yes.
for each committee so that we don't forget
Correct.
That's,
to
yes.
do these things. Oh, great, great. Is there any old or other new business to come before? There's no chair report, and the next board meeting is June 22nd. If there's nothing further to come before us, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.